How's it going, everyone? In this video, I'm going to be doing a review slash commentary on the album Yayayi. So, in the current world we live in, we find short form media has assimilated itself as real production, real design, and real art. For lack of a better sentiment, many people who listen to music have congested their ears with only hearing what they want to hear. Many mainstream songs, we find this reoccurring theme of the chorus being used for skits, TikToks, Instagram Reels, and so on, without ever actually listening to the song. And we find this to be true in our everyday lives when we share our thoughts and opinions on creative works, except at the same time we dumb it down to how cold or how hard it would look in some flashy visuals and some, a few transitions. Short form being, well, short form only has the time for that part that people communally agree on being the best part. Is this really what sharing is? In this music review, I want to be bringing light to what is a familiar figure or not, Yayayi, also known as ATIVAN Korea. Now, for those who don't know, before I begin, who is he? He's a solo artist who would eventually pave the way for innovative and experimental boom bap production. He would highlight what is possible for creative minds back since the late 2000s. Working with other underground artists with similar styles such as Amai and Shamana, releasing albums such as RFY in 2019, which many may be familiar with as he has his hand in the production of the songs such as Awesome, Narcan, and even a Drake cover called Never Recovery. Throughout the years, he had mostly remained anonymous, but with the slight come up in 2019 and the traction he was starting to gain, things started to look promising. Flash forward a little bit to early 2021, and an artist under the name Frame would steal from his self titled project from 2013 and claim it to be his own. What would occur afterwards is that this framed guy, after stealing the work of EI, would eventually gain the gardening of millions and millions of listens on across several music uploading platforms, whether it be Spotify, SoundCloud, or even just YouTube. The whole point being, he had framed himself to be the original creator, which then would become one of his most popular songs. And the worst part being, Yayayi got no credit. But why is that so important? Why specifically this album am I so frustrated with the fact that this smaller artist has stolen from an original creation, an original piece of art? What I have playing in the background is his most popular track off the self title. A lot of people like to call it but that's not the title at all. It's not even titled other than a few forward slashes and the number 9. It is simply track 9. Let's actually talk about the album now. The album in itself is an amalgamation of beautiful sounds, simply. It is filled with improv, it is filled with coordinated attacks on your eardrums that force you to pay attention and engage. You see a pattern here now. To foreshadow and reinforce my point, what I'm saying is that his sounds are experimental, and it's a complete contradiction of what short form media is. It needs to be quick, it needs to be flashy, and nobody can wait and listen. Nobody wants to. We start the album with tracks vertical, parallel, and horizontal, and all of them are followed by closed off brackets. What it means, I have never been able to figure out myself. Probably nothing. What we find in these tracks is this amount of cultivating sounds that just drives a listener to be engaged, like I said earlier. His sounds are unpredictable and almost manic, and it makes you question what is the intention. What is going to break of this mold? Vertical focusing on more of a gleeful and happy tone, whereas parallel is one of utter disdain and as if you're being watched by something. It's almost haunting, and Vertical being the shortest of them, that glee and blissful feeling is destroyed instantaneously by the different sounds and the almost scope of horror that happens in parallel. I personally do enjoy this shift in mood and tone. I find that it is quite reflective of the name. Parallel being it is completely separate from what you heard in vertical. Whereas in horizontal, we start to notice a few things change in his pattern and his schemes. I personally think that you, as the viewers, should listen to it yourself, as I don't think that there's any better way I could have explained it. Now let's talk about the tracks with numbers in them. It sounds pretty funny to anyone who's viewing it or listening to it for the first time. I can't lie. When I first heard it, I was thrown off too. But just be patient. It's kind of just like a foot in the door, littered with distortion and just creative pizzazz and fun. It is a fun, whimsical, and almost intoxicated. It has this intoxication feeling to it, which is a common theme that I love about this album. It is a motif that is handed to you that you, as a listener, are able to experiment with in your own head. On to the next track. We kind of flow into the next track with a very similar soundscape of just almost vile and blatantly vulgar sounds that are playing in your ears. It begs the question, what am I listening to? Is this in fact just a bunch of weird nonsense and noises stitched together to sound what is to be a creative endeavor? A creative project, perhaps? We notice, though, as we follow the track, that there are more human sounds. There are vocals. Yeah, they are distorted, but there's something that we're able to make out, even somewhat. And then we come full circle. What is a real chopped and screwed record? I'm of course referring to track number 4, the Juicy J Bands Will Make Her Dance sample that he utilizes perfectly to really get this album going. With more warped timbres and different sounds playing in your ears, there's a lot going on. Well, that's the point. It's supposed to be fresh and creative sounding every single time you listen to it. I've listened to the song many, many times, and I can't find myself getting bored of what he's going for. What Yayayi's trying to do being that he just simply wishes to amplify that feeling that Juicy J was trying to convey with this song. It's supposed to be like a flashy person who has money, who has the girls, who has it all. It is in itself a personification of the character Juicy J was trying to make. Now, remixes and samples are one thing, but when it comes to Yayayi, he's going for something. There's something deeper. We start to find a cool crescendo starting to happen within the record. That being what's supposed to be a Rack City sample that it does. Again, chopped and screwed, but this time it's more chilled out. It's less in your face. Rack City, being made by Tyga, it's meant to sort of personify this caricature of being chilled out, I've got money, and I think it's just a perfect characterization of the original intent. What he in himself is doing is paying attention to the artist and forming his own congruent, if not perpendicular thought process to these songs. He is not just sampling, he is creating something new. He doesn't just rip from the original production style, Rather, he has certain sequences, such as his fluttering hi-hats that move into 808 kicks, which add for a punchiness and momentum in his music. It's not just standing still, it's not static, it's constantly evolving. His next song is a Bone Thugs and Harmony sample, track 5, the song being The First of the Month, that one popular song, easy to remember. But he doesn't just stay consistent and offer the same themes and pattern. Again, he's constantly developing these original songs and making them into original works. He doesn't just start limiting these songs to one sample, though. He does make more creative decisions, such as about a minute into this track, he includes the Silver sample, which is a 1972 Soul Collective. Pretty fun fact. And then, of course, his most popular track, what people know as or sometimes even Shame, which is the original title of the original track from Freddie Gibbs and Madlib. Now, don't get me wrong, this song is great. It is probably the first song I actually ever honestly heard. It caught my attention. It is quite grabbing to an audience. It pulls you in. Something about it just wants you begging more. The different wavelengths of the different sounds almost allow you to easily visualize what Freddie Gibbs and Madlib were trying to go for. The life of someone who has women and, they leave the next day. Don't call my phone. That's it. It's supposed to sound like a cool song with a catchy chorus and make you feel like you're on top of the world. Yayayi does not just remix. Once again, I will say it once more. He's creating his own projects by respecting the original works. Track 6 has multiple acts. It doesn't just stick to, again, this simple sample with a few creative hi-hats and his few 808 kicks. Like, the album starts off as just a bunch of noises. But then we've come all the way to track 9, where we even have a full outro to the song, where the song stands still, it goes silent, and what he makes of the last minute is just this amazing and transcendent feeling, as if you're rising up with your arms out. His next song, once again, has 2 samples. One, which took me a long time to find, as most of SoundCloud's pages and on whosampled.com only shows what is a song called Memory Band by Minnie Riperton, made in 1970, which he uses for his little guitar strings and his pizzicato plucks, which I find to be very alluring. The main song he samples, though, being I'm Good by YG, again, another late 2000s, early 2010s project that kind of just describes this crunk lifestyle, except in this track it sounds like the vocalist is drunk. Again, this is not something I'm complaining about, this is something that I love about the album. It is a complete inflation of the character. It's lovely stuff, and it's fun. When speaking of fun, it's really important that I really go over track 8. This song is, to anyone who listens or decides to listen to this album for the first time, you gotta understand it's a fun song. It's great, really. I've shown many of my friends this song, and I've gotten laughs, I've gotten giggles and smirks, and I'll say that, yeah, maybe it was a little embarrassing. But as I come back to it, I can't help but jam along to it. It is just a groovy, funky song, and it has this perfect blend of EDM that is completely dissonant to the lyrics. It once more just adds to the character of this older man who is just trying to have sex, for lack of a better explanation. I'm so proud of the fact that I like this song so much that I'll explain why. The song that he samples, being the Whisper song or Wait by the Yin Yang Twins, is quite literally just a song of them whispering. It is meant to be vulgar and maybe even erotic to some listeners. How is that fun though? Well, with his use of his step-like production, he opens the track with this almost as if someone is actively inviting you to, well, have sex, do the deed. With this song specifically, we find that there is such a frequency of high-pitched sounds and different synths that are being used in order to once again convey this sense of vulgarity, and I love it. It is a perfect personification through beat making and just music. His next song, / is track 9, another good sample of the late 2000s, or sorry, actually early 2000s. The song Get Low by Lil Jon and the East Side Boys. With the Yin Yang Twins, which is a cool little touch and a sense of flow into the album. The same caricatures that were just expressing their need to do the deed and be with some kind of partner has carried on into this song that is erratic. It is all over the place. And I've shown people this song as well. These two songs being the ones that I face the most critique whenever I show other people this album. Now, I've had certain conversations about this specific song, whether it's just simply erratic dubstep or if it's actually something worth listening to. Personally, I find it to be one of my more preferred tracks to listen to whenever I come back to this album, for the simple fact that, once more, it's just a fun song. It is supposed to be loose. The song Get Low, Get This, is a song literally about getting low with people on the dance floor, specifically with women. Now, whether it be the two-step 808s or the fluttering hi-hats and the snares, it's whatever you want to listen to. What I love about this song specifically is that there is so much going on that it doesn't sound erratic. It's almost like every listen is a new experience. Like I said earlier, depending on what you want to listen to, you can personalize it to however you want to hear it. This is what true creativity is. American visual artist and film director Andy Warhol kind of sums it up pretty much. I'll paraphrase it, but what he states is that art is what you can get away with. I feel like in this song, he gets away with being erratic because there is just this creative endeavor to make it sound different every single time. Again, it's linear, but there are many different pathways, kind of like a telltale story. Now, it wouldn't really be a review if all I said was that because he makes the sounds more aggressive and delivers the message of aggression more thoroughly through these projects and different songs, that I wouldn't say that's what makes it good. To sum up this point, think about how far we've come into the album. We started with distorted sounds that have no congruent meaning with each other whatsoever, where one track is literally called Parallel. These tracks are starting to form some kind of theme. Again, trying to reiterate the original production or creation of the original artist and their intents. It's respect from creator to creator. Now, if I haven't lost you already, then stay with me now. After we sort of diverge from those chaotic beats, in his song /10, he samples two songs once again. Gas Pedal by Sage the Gemini in the same year, 2013, and Sean Kingston's Beat It, also made in 2013. What we can find with this track is that he's starting to vocalize his production even more. It is not that his synths and his different 808s are making just random noises, again, to further reinforce whatever the original message was. In this track, he starts to vocalize himself through his synths. I feel like that is what really separates this from just a regular remix or remix production, if you will. And I'll just say it outright. And it might be a bias when I say this, but it just sounds good. It doesn't necessarily sound bad, and even when he is super erratic, I can't see it as it sounding simply bad, because I, as the listener, think it's just a bunch of noises. When I think of bad music, I think of pots and pans literally clanking to make some kind of incoherent sound. You could make the argument and say that that's what Yayayi sounds like in tracks like Horizontal, Parallel, or even Vertical, but it's obviously not just a bunch of sounds. If he wanted to make an album with just a bunch of sounds, he would be ill creative and he would have done that, which tells you that there's something more that lies deeper within these tracks. In his next track, 4/11, a sample of the song Act Right by Yo Gotti, also made in 2013. This song is just pure joy. It is good. It is euphoria that is made into music. I feel like my point on it forcing you and kind of telling you to pay attention to it is reinforced with his use of almost lighthouse sounding bells, like church bells playing in the background. It's not centered with the rest of the chorus, it's not centered with the rest of the piece. It is meant to sound off putting, it is meant to grab your attention. A good example of this in other forms of media or song is like the song Pac Blood by Danny Brown, where he utilizes a Bob Dylan sample, which kind of sounds like a weird siren almost, constantly grabbing your attention and forcing you to stay engaged. Again, he stays consistent with his fluttering hi-hats into cool snare sounds, and it just delivers for this really punchy project. I'd be lying if, on surface value, this is just a chopped and screwed album, because it's not. Yes, he does borrow a lot from the chopped and screwed scene, but you can tell that this is a professional. This is not somebody who is simply warping just to warp and just to fit the genre of chopped and screwed. Once more, if he wanted to just make a chopped and screwed album, he would have probably done that. He has a full hour of chopped and screwed content, but it's only existing after this hour of dissonant sounds. His next track, /15, probably once again one of my favorite songs off of this album. What he starts to do in this song, the Yeah sample by Usher, released in 2004, is he completely flips the script. Not only is he flipping the script on a macro level, innovating the album from dissonant sounds to consistently applying these themes and inflating them, he is flipping the script on a micro level. In the song, he uses these downward spiraling piano rolls in order to create this dissonant feeling. He's once again experimenting with the fact that music is whatever you make of it. It can be a guy who sounds brave to enjoy the nightlife, but, you know, like the music entails in the song /14, it sounds depressing and lonely. That's what I love about it. It creates a brand new narrative that a listener can follow. Other people may listen to it and think it's a goofy, chopped and screwed version, or maybe even something as funny as like some silly nightcore version. But that's not the case. If he wanted to make that, he would. But there's a reason why this track specifically, he decided to up the ante on this feeling of dread. It makes you question once more, what is the bigger picture here going for? Other than the fact that he's showing off his raw talent, he just wishes to show you the different angles and perspectives you can take when listening to music. As we get close to wrapping up the album, /12 is quite the interesting track. Nearly 7 minutes of a looped synthwave production. Why is it good though, if it's just 7 minutes of the same thing? I think different visual artists around YouTube and even old archive uploaders kind of understand what he's going for once more with this song. You're meant to imagine. You're meant to drift off. Yeah, other simple beats do that, such as your typical lo-fi 24/7 live ASMR study feed, whatever it may be, but this is simply his expertise showing once more. He made a very simple and repeating beats sound interesting. Again, it's multi-layered with bass reel-ins, and it grabs your attention. It's not just the same thing over and over again. Every single loop, you get to imagine it however you want. After that beat finishes, we find ourselves looping back to the same narrative. Some kind of bargaining man, or something of that nature. And considering how far we've come, I can only relate this track to being something of a sort of calm after the storm. After about an hour and 50 minutes, we can find that he doesn't just leave on that high note. He handles the album with care. He lets it down gently. And I think that for the last song, that being /15, I do believe that this is kind of that nice conclusion that we as the audience and as the listener needed. What you hear in the end is beautiful 808s and very simple melodic structured sounds that sort of just leave you satisfied. After all the chaotic sounds and the different experiments you can make with trying your hand in music, it can also just be as simple as a very homophonic melody. I think I want to wrap this video up with discussing more about the whole 2020 incident and where he's gone from there. Ever since his 2013 self-titled project, he would remain mostly anonymous on the internet until once again 2019 RFY had dropped. He had started to gain traction. 2021 rolls around and his song gets stolen, garnering millions and millions of views, and he remains to be silent on the internet, with his most recent disappearance being around the middle of 2024, where he would delete all of his social medias. What was taken from him was the best part of what is, debatably one of his best songs, don't get me wrong. But what does that tell us about where music listening is heading? What does that tell us about our peers and their attention spans? Where do we go from here? I think that this album in itself was a prediction of the future and where music was heading. How saturated and simple melodic structure it would become. Yayayi didn't just make random sounds just to make random sounds. He made the random sounds to show you that sound is what music is. And however you paint the picture, however you want to tell the story, is within the eyes of the beholder. If you go into this album seeing the album cover and thinking that this is a weird album, then you're probably going to hear the sounds and think it's weird. People fail to look into new media and new projects and forms of art without some kind of bias that overshadows their opinion. And even for people who have listened to the stolen track, they will go into Yayayi's projects, the rest of it, and hear these sounds, and they'll be expecting simple and easy to follow, spoon-fed choruses and melodies, and they'll hear these sounds and they won't enjoy it because what they've already ingested is just the shortest form to express his art, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, or whatever it may be. This album is significant, and it shouldn't be forgotten. As it stands now, there's only one video of the full album I can find on YouTube, with only 100k views. 100k views, compared to the millions that were stolen from him. Personally, I give this album about a 9 out of 10, because I'd be lying if I said he doesn't make mistakes, like every artist does. Sometimes those loud and chaotic sounds can be a little bit too much, and the mixing in itself and objectively might not be the best sometimes. It was 2013, a different time. But I feel like with an album like this, it's super important that you as the viewer go out and listen to it yourself. This artist has had so much taken from him, and what would really mean a lot to me is if you yourself listened to it, and at the very least gave a constructive opinion. One that you formed after listening to the album, after you discovered it. When you take the time to sit down and listen to it, I truly find it to be something pretty enjoyable to listen to. Anyway, everyone, happy listening.